Please note that in this show you might hear graphic descriptions or language that may not be appropriate for everyone. Listener discretion advised.
It's funny because, I don't know if it's funny or not, but her coworkers actually got counseling for what happened to her, but they never offered the family any counseling. I never got any help for that, which is another reason why I started this page.
Welcome to Parentless Podcast. I am your host, Stephanie Relaford. On this show, we're going to be speaking with others who have experienced the loss of one or both of their parents or parental figures. As we heard in episode 12 with Louisa Velarde, being parentless is like an island, and I don't know how to swim. Thank you for being my life jacket.
My name is Rebecca, and I'm the founder of LVM ADVTNGE, which I have created in honor of my mom to raise homicide awareness. I started this as a platform to help other survivors of homicide victims to share their story and their voice.
Tell me, why are we here and who was your person?
My person, I would say, was my mother, and she was murdered when I was 17 years old, when I was in high school, or like the first week of my senior year in high school. So I kind of started off high school, dealing with her murder. And then pretty much that was in 2014. It's already 2021. So it's been 7 years, since has been gone, and I'm 24 now. I've kind of been, it's like the first 6 years of her passing was kind of like me avoiding everything. So, which is why I never mentioned her to anyone, like any new people that I've ever met or anything like that. So, but last year, during COVID, we're all just sitting in our house, kind of like trying to keep ourselves entertained. I kind of come up with like this thought that, I haven't been honoring her as much as I should be, because, keeping silent about her is like more of an injustice than actually justice to her. So I figured, if I'm being silent about my story, then, there's many other survivors that also aren't talking about their story. So I'm just like, maybe I should actually start something, get something going so more people can like start talking about themselves and their person as well.
Yeah, I really like that. And I don't know if it's just because of how my parents died, but that was sickness of natural stuff, So in the groups that I've joined, it's a lot of people dying of natural things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do think that that's really a need from what I see. And so that's great that you're there and out there for everyone. Sometimes I do ask, a lot of times, every time I ask what happened with your person. And so that is up to you completely if you would like to share anything.
Oh, yeah, no, of course.
What happened with your mom?
So, I guess I could go through like the whole breakdown. It was during a weekend. So, usually every weekend, my family and I used to, like during the summer, would go fishing every Saturday night. So she was a manager at a fast food restaurant called Popeyes. And, she usually worked the night shift. And she pretty much worked like 6 days a week, mostly 7, I guess, depending on the week. And, this was one of the nights that she was working on a Saturday night. She was closing with one of her coworkers that was planning this ahead of time, I guess I should say. He wanted some money because he was stressed out about finances, about supporting his family, who also lives in a different country. And, he specifically wanted her to close that night because she wasn't supposed to work that night, I believe. And, he just kept texting her like beforehand, making sure that she's coming into work. And, as she's closing that night, he pretty much, kills her after closing. Like technically, when you're closing at a store, you are supposed to have 3 people with you. But this guy convinced the other coworker that he'll take care of everything and watch over everything. So that coworker left, and it was just him and my mother. So yeah, he pretty much cut the camera wires, I guess, so that they don't see, but they still saw his face anyways in the camera before that. And then yeah, he stabbed her over 40 times, over like a few $100s. So yeah.
Amazing in a horrible way.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see what people will do over a couple $100s, or like what stress makes you do. But he kind of planned this beforehand. Like he even asked like the homeless people around, like if they'll join in and help them like get the money. They're like, oh, we'll help you rob. But then once he mentioned like the fact of like killing her, they're like, we don't want any part in that.
Well, was he brought to justice?
Yeah, he was. He's currently in there for life, which is 25 years. So we got, I don't even know how many years. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I don't really pay attention to that part. I kind of like backed away from even like dealing with all that. Cause I was 17 at that time. So I was trying to stay away from all of that. I just know that he's in jail and that he's in there for like a few more years. Well, a few meaning like over 10 years or so or something. But yeah, I mean, it's like, is that really justice,
No.
Yeah.
I was going to follow up with that's not, not the right word. So yeah, you're the first person actually that I've talked to that has lost a loved one this way. So I'm probably going to have a lot of questions.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I think I'm going to start with, you said you were 17 when this happened and you didn't really tell people about it until speak about it until more recently. And so with you being a senior and just starting school, what do you tell people?
My initial thought when I heard about this was like, am I going to tell people? Because I really didn't want to talk to anyone about that. But during my like elementary, middle, high school life, I've only stayed in one same place. So all my friends that I grew up with knew me like my whole life pretty much. So I'm just like, I can't keep this hidden from them. And plus the church that my mom was like, the funeral service was the church that my school is affiliated with. So it's like, they'll know something's going on. So I'm just like, I had to. So I went to school. It was a Labor Day weekend, so I had that one Monday off, but I went to school that Tuesday, and I went to my vice principal, and my dad's like, well, I guess we'll tell him, what's going on. So they're just aware of the situation. So we told my vice principal, and then my vice principal asked me, do they want to announce it over like the overhead morning announcements? I'm just like, no, don't do that. Like, I just don't want people knowing, because the people at my school were really nosy about everything. So I'm just like, forget it. And then I think the Wednesday, I decided to tell my friends, was it Wednesday? Sorry, I get the days mixed up. I think it was the Tuesday. That same Tuesday, I decided to actually tell my friends all together in like one room so that I can just get it over with and then never talk about it again. So, funny enough, even though I did tell them, one of my friends, how do I say this? The thing about like homicide is that it'll be on the news. So like, they're not going to say who it was, but I knew one of my friend's moms watched the news every single morning. So I had like a gut feeling that her mom probably saw something and she would say something, because Popeyes was kind of like, it's like a huge thing in my family. So everyone's like, oh, do you know this about Popeyes? What's this? Because it's like, I've been brought up with, because both of my parents worked at Popeyes and I worked at Popeyes at that time too. So one of my friends was like, oh, my mom saw on the news that someone was murdered at this Popeyes. Like, do you know who this person is? I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm jumping into this early now. So I stand there and then, I go to the side, and then eventually I tell, my friend. And then, it was kind of like, that was the first time I ever said it out loud to someone. So I kind of like, it was like a shock to me. So I kind of like started crying, and I like ran away to the bathroom. And then it kind of like, went from there. But then they didn't really ask about it afterwards, because I was still announcing to everyone, like, please meet me like in this room later, because I just have something to announce. Eventually, it comes to the end of the day of school, and I do tell all my friends, and I tell them, I don't want anyone to know. Please don't tell anyone. Like, we're just going to keep this between this group. I mean, most of them did respect that, but like, a few people did like find out, like other mutual friends, which was fine, because, they weren't really like gossiping anything. But yeah, I was blessed enough to have friends that didn't like spread it around to every single person, and no one like really came up to me like saying, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know like this and this. Like, none of that happened. So I was lucky with that in a sense.
You mentioned that afterwards not very many people brought it up. Is that kind of how you've noticed that things have continued to go throughout the 7 years?
For sure, yeah. Like, even with my friends, like, I mean, it's probably my fault, because me as a person, I'm not very open about my life in general. So they are probably also afraid, to talk to me about it or ask me any questions. And I don't blame them for that, because, I'm not open about that part of my life. I have this platform and I'm open, but this itself has been like a huge challenge for me, even talking about it. So, even when I broke the news to my friends about like me actually talking about my mom, like I even said, like, just read it on the website. I have a website, go read it, because I don't want to tell them like in person. It's just still like very new to me and just very weird. So, I mean, but regarding like my family, they're pretty open about talking about my mom. They don't really talk about like what happened to her as much. But when it was like that first year, all they would talk about is like the situation, and just like they kind of went like through this phase of like, oh my goodness, like if I die, please do this and this and this and this. They're all like preparing themselves like for anything unexpected. So that's what they were going through, and I just kind of like sat there and just was like, okay, I listened. It wasn't a big deal to me, but it was just interesting to see how like everyone, reacts to like, unexpected tragic death. Yeah.
And so who all's in your immediate family?
It's just my father and I. We just have like a lot of extended family, like cousins and stuff. So we consider them immediate, but it's not really immediate. We just like, they're the ones that we just hang out with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's just my father and I.
Okay. So what happens to this father-daughter dynamic whenever your mom is gone?
My father and I actually were more close than my mom and I. My mother and I didn't really have much of a relationship, which is also like another reason why I kind of didn't talk about it as much. Because it's like, what do I say about, a person I was never close with? So, yeah, my dad and I were perfect. Like, we were still normal, I guess. Like, he's more of an open person, more openly emotional. So, he definitely talked about his feelings more and what he went through. And he would get mad at me because I wasn't saying anything. He's like, are you okay? Like, how are you dealing with this? Like, why don't you say something or cry or something? I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do, because I'm not going to do what you want me to do. And he kind of like, I would overhear him talking to other people on the phone about everything. They're like, he'll be like, I don't know how Rebecca is. Like, she doesn't say anything. And I'm just like, okay, that's great, I guess. Talk to other people about like what I'm going through. Why just stick to yourself? And if people want to talk to me about it, they can. But I mean, we still are fine. Like, nothing has changed. We're still the same. If anything, I think, he's obviously going through his own grief. And I feel like we both like to keep ourselves very distracted. I already worked 2 jobs, and I decided to start LVM, because I thought I was just sitting around. But, that's far from the truth. And my dad, he kind of wanted to get himself distracted. So he's working this job that like pretty much takes up 24/7 of his time. And I don't really see him as much. And I don't know. It's like he's kind of getting close to that retirement age. So it's like, why are you working yourself this hard when you should be relaxing? And if I tell him that, he says, well, what am I supposed to do? I'm just like, I don't know. Relax. That's what retirement is.
So you mentioned that you all worked at Popeyes, but did you work at the same one?
how do I say? It was like the same owner owned multiple stores. So there's like around 13 stores. And sometimes like managers can switch stores, but I was just a cashier, so I didn't switch. But I think there was only a couple times that I worked with my mom. I didn't actually work under her. We worked at different stores. She worked at a different store. My father worked at a different store. So we pretty much at the end of the day worked at different stores.
Okay, so what I'm kind of getting at is, what did you keep working at Popeyes after that, you and your dad, or what did you do?
That's a really good question. My dad, he took a break, probably 3 months from working there, only because the place that we were living at was full of a lot of her things, and we had to get rid of it immediately because we did not want it anymore. So we sent it to her family in the Philippines. They didn't expect me to come in, I guess, but I remember I was still scheduled to work, and I'm sitting in school. I'm just like, I don't know if I want to go back. So I call up a manager that I was, cool with. This is very unprofessional, by the way, so I don't recommend anyone to do this. But I call my manager and was like, yeah, I'm never coming back. And that's it. I hung up. And, that was pretty much it. I mean, they weren't going to do anything. So I'm just like, okay, I'm not going back there. I think I would have been fine working there. It's just that due to my mother and I not being close, and like me not knowing her family, by the way, I don't know her family at all. In like the Philippines, seeing Filipino people in general kind of is like a trigger for me. So there's this one lady that actually started working at the store that I was working at that looked very similar to my mom. So I'm just like, I can't deal with that. So I didn't go back to that store. Yeah.
Well, and the next thing you said was that you got rid of all of her things right away.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know more about that process, I guess.
Well, let's just say that my mom was like kind of a hoarder. Like she would see something on sale and she would buy it. So, a lot of just like unnecessary things. I mean, she loved Christmas. So she had like this Christmas tree that she'd always like put up every year. And we sent that tree to, her family in case they needed it. They're kind of, they live in poverty, I guess I should say. So they don't have as many things as, we do over here. So we sent a lot of her clothes, bags, a lot of purses, pretty much all that. It was just a lot of clothes and just like little things. But I did keep a few things that I thought, maybe in the future that I would want, so I did keep those things. But, just like, few clothes and things like that. Nothing like too personal or sentimental. I guess. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I like the way that you explained it, as and I've definitely heard before, is with, it sounds like maybe there was a lot of things, and so to get all that cleared out would probably be. Did you find it maybe as like a lifting? Did you feel like a burden was kind of lifted off?
It was more of a burden going through it, like actually packing everything. I just wanted things out of there because we lived in a very cluttered space. We lived in an apartment, so all her stuff in the small space that we were living in was already like a lot. Plus, I just wanted to get out of that apartment in general. I hated living there. So
is that what happened? Did you guys move soon after?
We moved 2 years after. Because I guess during that time, it was hard to find a place to like move out of. But I mean, I don't miss that place at all. I drive by it all the time because it's 5 minutes away from where I live now, which is really funny. But, I don't miss it at all. Like I pass by it and I forget I even lived there. But, sometimes if I actually look at it, I'll be like, oh, wow, I did live here. But I don't miss anything about it. It's kind of like, I don't know. I don't think there are really that many happy memories, which is why I don't really feel bad about moving out.
So you still then live where you grew up?
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like. Okay. So 7 years later, what is that like for you now?
Like,
just in terms of like, you mentioned that you grew up here, you went to school here, all the people that you know. I mean, I'm sure there's still people around that you know and that you grew up with. Is it still just people don't talk much about it? Or now that you're starting to talk more about it, are any of those people hearing or knowing about what you're doing?
Yeah, so I don't really see the people that I grew up with as much like school wise because we're all like doing our own thing. Like my friends and I, we still talk like over the phone. But when I did decide to announce that I'm starting this page, a lot of people, that I wasn't close with actually reached out to me and was like, wow, I'm really like, I'm sorry, like, because I guess they didn't know that this happened. So they're like, I'm sorry about this. Like, I would love to follow and like all this stuff. And even some people that were close to me in high school also like, you know, gave their blessing or like, expressed that they were proud that I'm at this point in my journey. My friends, I guess, I kind of, told them beforehand before starting it because I was initially starting LVM like for t-shirts actually to like have others, share awareness for their loved ones. So I had like a photo shoot with them beforehand, telling them like this is what I'm starting off with. So they already knew, like my close friends. Family, on the other hand, I did not tell them. If my cousins followed me, they knew on like Instagram. But if you're not following me out of Instagram, you don't know anything. And I guess like one of my cousins, he likes to talk a lot. So he was like, "Oh, how's your little thing going?" I'm like, and then his parents are like, "What little thing?" And then he's like, "Oh, you don't see that shirt? She made that." I'm just like, wow, okay. I guess just, put it out there. So a few of my family members know, but all their like just I guess one of my aunts was like, "I'm really proud of your mom would be really proud of you." And yeah, that was pretty much all I heard from my family. Besides that, nothing else.
How did that make you feel whenever she said that your mom would be proud of you?
I mean, it was like she was nice about it. Like I don't get offended or hurt or like I don't know how to explain it or like super surprised about things about what she says. It's kind of weird sometimes only because I don't know my mom that well, but she, you know, hung out with my mom before I was born. So she knows things that I don't know. So I guess maybe what she's saying is true. But like whatever my mom expressed to me while she was here with me, I don't really feel that. So it's just like, I guess, maybe she is, but I'll never know.
Well, hey, let's jump right into that now. We talk about what do you think your mom is? Some people say that they're looking down on you, or do you have what are your thoughts on that?
Like an afterlife type of thing, or just
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a pretty religious person. I believe in God. I don't even know. I mean, I'll just say that she's looking down upon me and all that stuff, but I don't know like whether it's true or not. I mean, if when it comes to spirits, I believe them, but will I focus on them? No, I ignore them. If that makes any sense. Like I'm not going to put my time and effort into actually paying attention to all those things.
Parentless Podcast is available on many podcast platforms. Now, if you listen to podcasts, like you can probably just go search the show and you'll be able to find it, no problem. However, some of those platforms do include Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Amazon, and that's just a few. Something that you can do right now is take a screenshot of the episode you're listening to at this very minute, post it to your Instagram story, and then tag me. If you know a friend or a family member that might find something helpful in the show, you can go ahead and tag them too, or just send them a message. Another simple way to help get the word out about Parentless Podcast is to rate, review, and follow wherever you're listening right now, especially on Apple Podcasts. Everything that I've researched, everything that I've heard, it says if you do this for me, it will help get the word out. That's what they say. So let's test it, right? If we don't have the reviews, we won't know. Please come, please help, please review. Thank you so much for your continued support of Parentless Podcast.
I have a podcast where I talk about my journey of losing my mother, like, my initial thoughts, my relationship with her, like what I went through when I found out, pretty much, everything that I have discussed here, I pretty much go on a deeper level on my podcast, like on Apple, Spotify, anything. And I also have it on YouTube where you can see me in person in case you want to see me. But it's really funny because when I first started my podcast on YouTube, it's so dark because I didn't want people knowing me. So it's very dark when you see me in the beginning. And then towards the end, you can see that I kind of get a little bit more comfortable, but not really. So it's like a little bit more light, but it's still dark at the same time. So, but yeah, that's pretty much where you can find like my story at.
And what is the name of your podcast?
Oh, it's LVM Podcast is the name. Try to keep it simple. The title of like the actual thing is LVM Advantage, but for some reason it's harder to find than LVM Podcast. So LVM Podcast is better to search if you want to look it up. Yeah.
That is a good tip. And what does LVM stand for?
LVM is a direct inspiration of my mom's name, Luz V Minda. So each syllable starts with LVM, Luz V Minda. But then it also means loss versus mind. Because, you know, I feel like when we lose someone or just any type of loss that we go through, it can make a huge impact on our mind in a negative way. And you can go to like a really dark place. And that's why I like put loss versus mind, like, because, you know, we can be better than like our mind, like is the, how do I say? Our minds are stronger than we actually think. And we can overcome like, you know, all the negativity and sadness in our life. Not saying that we should, but, you know, we can. We don't have to be in that dark place if we don't want to be there. Like we're in control of our lives. And the advantage part comes from like how my mother was taken advantage of. And I wanted to change that connotation and say that we are the advantage in our lives. So we can make it a more positive impact than like, you know, how losses do take advantage of us sometimes.
I like that.
Thank you. I mean, the thing is with homicide cases in general, like our story is already out there, like on articles and news stuff and everything like that. So it's like, we don't get we don't get to be anonymous as much, but I guess since I was 17 at that time, I wasn't allowed to be questioned or anything, so my name wasn't out there. So I did have a hesitation, like, do I want to put my name along with this? Because then now they're actually going to know who her daughter was. But I'm just like, it's not a big deal. I have the same last name as whatever they put, so might as well. But, you know, when sometimes I know like a lot of survivors can relate to this. When you type in their name, like usually their person who was murdered will pop up. And but when you type in my name, that doesn't happen because, you know, I guess I was fortunate enough not to be actually associated with that. But if you do type in my dad's name, like the photo of the killer will pop up, which is ironic, I guess. Yeah.
So now that you've started talking a little bit and kind of doing this work, have you learned anything about your, you know, when it comes to grief or kind of dealing with things? Have you learned anything that you would have told your 17-year-old self?
It's interesting that you say that or ask that because I think I have muted the word grief out for the past 7 years. Well, until like I took LVM seriously, because once I actually like started looking at other pages about grief, I'm just like, what is grief? What is this grief thing? And even though I know what grief is, it's like, what is it? And, you know, every time I would watch a show, it's like the word grief would just pop out of nowhere. Like they would actually be talking about it. I'm like, all right, I need to look into this. I'm just like, oh, so this is what grief is because I've been avoiding it my whole life. So I guess, you know, I think about grief is like, I think it was important for me to be able to do that privately. I think I would tell my younger self, you know, at least do like be in tune with your emotions more. And like, you know, it's okay to like have your feelings. I mean, it's hard for me to say that because I still am like going through like this whole avoidance thing. Like I don't really cry much about my mother's death, as weird as it is to say that, only because I don't think I've fully acknowledged it or accepted it because me and my mother were never close. So it makes me more angry than sad. And I think younger me was definitely more angry at her because of, you know, the relationship that we didn't have, and because she didn't really put a proper effort in for us, like, to have like a really good mother-daughter like relationship that everyone dreams of, but I didn't get that chance. So I was mad because I didn't know her family. I didn't know any about them, and breaking the news to them was very difficult considering the language barrier and all these other things. So I was very mad at her. And but now, like, I've moved past that. You know, I've realized that she is human, and you know, we all as human beings go through our own difficult journeys. So probably would tell myself to understand that she is human. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to accept your emotions, but you know, try to deal with it in a healthier way. I'm telling myself that now too. But yeah.
And I think what maybe one of the steps is doing these interviews and definitely talking and sharing with other people like you are doing. Now as a 24-year-old, has it changed you at all in the last year?
I think it has a lot, honestly. When I first started this, I wanted to like I initially went to look for homicide like support groups, and there's a few out there, but it's not like there's no one my age, I should say. And I did find a grief support group. Like, this is all on Facebook initially. I never looked on Instagram, and you know, they're very different. I'm one of those people that gets uncomfortable with a lot of emotions and a lot of crying, but it's like, do what you have to do. I'm not going to judge you. It's just, I personally feel uncomfortable about it. And I would see all these people just openly crying on like these platforms, just like recording themselves. I'm just like, wow, this is so interesting. But you know, I don't know how I feel about it. So I did not like, I just stopped visiting it because it was just it was overwhelming for me personally. But, you know, I think it's good that they're able to express themselves that way. But when I started like looking more on Instagram, it was interesting to see other people like actually talk about their loss, because, you know, I feel like when you actually get to this point in life looking up other people, you're like, wow, there are a lot of people. Because I never thought that there was people talking about like them going through, you know, a loss of a loved one. But then I realized when I was first looking, there was no one talking about homicide loss. So I'm just like, this is what I got to do. And then, you know, I've been fortunate to find other people who have been able to like open up and also message me that they went through a homicide loss. So it has changed me in a way, because I think, how do I say this? Sorry, I don't know. It's like, it's good to know that there's other people like around my age group that are willing to talk about it. So I've been more, I guess, confident in myself to talk about my story, because before I was more hesitant whether people would understand me or not, because, you know, our situation is a bit different than others, like their losses. So I definitely wasn't sure if like people would actually understand, you know, what my platform really is about.
So some of the questions, you know, we talk directly more about like your loved ones. So some of it would be your memories of her. Do we want to go into that part, or?
I don't mind. You can ask anything. I'm pretty open.
Okay. Well, I mean,
it just depends on whether I remember or not. I will try to like say as much as I can.
Okay. Well, some of the things, like, is there any type of smell, sight, taste, sound, anything that might remind you of your mom?
No. Well, not that I know of. We still have a lot of boxes in, even though it's been like over 5 years since we moved, or around 5 years since we moved into like my new place, there's still a lot of boxes that aren't open. So when I'm trying to like clean out some things, there'll be like new things of hers that I find. And it's like a scent of her perfume. I'll be like, oh, wow. That like brings me back to like weird memories that I remember. Or like listening to certain songs, like just like old pop songs like that she used to listen to. I was like, oh, my mom did listen to that. And, you know, I think that's pretty much it. Food wise, she She didn't really cook as much, but she would like cook some traditional Filipino foods, which I did not eat for a while. Only this year I've started like actually going to a Filipino place to like get like her food. I'm just like, you know what? I kind of miss eating it because it was good. And then I remember like getting mad because I'm just like, why didn't she cook this more often? So then, I mean, either way, that's like a few things that do remind me, but I don't think there's anything else. I don't avoid looking at photos, I guess. Like when I do see photos of her, it's kind of weird. I guess because I remember going to one of my family's house and I saw her photo on their fridge, and that was like seeing her photo in a very long time. I'm like, why is that there? I was like I was taken, like, it was like very shocking me. But then I was just like, I guess they miss her too. And I walked away. So yeah.
So then I guess it's safe to say that you don't have pictures of her around then.
We don't have any photos hanging up, I should say, of her or anything. There's no photos in general anywhere in this house.
Hey, that really helps with the avoidance and the all of that. It works great.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Which may not be what we're going for,
But it's not, but yeah, exactly. We do what we have to do. But I do like when I was starting this page, I was like, I guess I should have some photos of her. So I had to like look through my photos, and then I went to my cousin's house and stole some photos from there. But I do have a few photos of her. But you know, yeah.
Is there anything like a phrase or anything that she might say or might have said that you remember?
No, at least not in English. I don't even know what it's like. She would like, I mean, I had a really smart mouth as a kid, so she would like say things in her language, which I never understood, but I remember I remember the phrase. I just don't know what it means.
Is there one thing that you would say to someone else who has lost a loved one to homicide? Do you have like one main piece of advice for them?
This is really difficult for me to answer, only because, I'm still in my like journey. I think what I have learned so far is that don't stop talking about them. That is what I think I will say, because I think a lot of people have this type of guilt about like what has happened to their loved one, and that guilt should be on the person that committed the crime, not us, because we didn't do anything wrong. And it is important to keep their name going, because if it wasn't for that other person that did what they did, they would still be here with us. And, it's important to keep them alive as well through like their memories and what they have done. Even if like the smallest thing, because, some people don't have like happy memories, but something that you cherish, I think, you should still keep talking about it.
You mentioned that because you may not have a lot of happy memories, or because your relationship might have not have been, it wasn't close with your mom. Do you feel a little bit of flack for that?
I think a lot of things are in my mind. I feel like because I know I wasn't close with her, I feel like everyone knows that I should have like this negative feelings towards her or something. My family, I guess they were always kind of confused about me and my emotions. I don't know if they knew about my relationship with my mom, so they don't really mention it as much. But my friends definitely knew like my relationship with my mom, and they kind of they wouldn't really say much. Like I said before, they kind of like kept their space about it. But I have had a few people like say like, it's really interesting that you would do this, or like for her, because I know that you don't really care about her. I'll be like, well, okay. It's not that I don't care, but I guess we'll go with that. I didn't really know what to say, but I had to think to myself, like, do I not care about her? Is that like what I give off? Because, I did as a teenager, we don't agree with our parents on a lot of things. So it's like we're going through that bratty stage of like going against everything our parents wants us to do. So it's like I feel like I still have that image of myself from then now, because I'm not that same person as then.
Mm-hmm.
I've moved on from going against my parents, kind of. I just do my own thing. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really interesting dynamic. And, we don't ever know anybody's journey. And so all of those people should just be quiet.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like, I mean, I remember like when my mom, like, during the early few days of her passing away, like a lot of my family members would try to like make me feel like I'm lost. I don't know. They'll be like, "Are you looking for her still?" I'm like, "No, I know she's gone. I'm just sitting here. Like, what do you want me to like stare at something? Like, what do you want me to do?" It was really weird. I don't know. But it's just they didn't really know me as well. So they probably trying to make me seem like I'm confused. I was 17. I'm like, I'm not like a child that doesn't know anything. But yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, but I like how you brought up that when you're in that stage, you're in a completely different space, I think.
Yeah.
Did you have hope that you might have gotten to a closer spot or not? Like if she would have lived and you're older and all that stuff. We don't want to do what ifs. I guess that's a what if.
Oh, I do what ifs all the time, though,
Okay.
so it's okay. Well, it's hard because I think when I was younger at that age, I definitely wanted to get away from everyone in general. Like even while she was alive, I wanted to like be independent and live on my own. Like that was always like what I wanted. But it was hard to do that after she passed away because I wanted to look after my dad. So I didn't really get to live the independent life that I always wished for. But I think, I mean, now I think about it a lot about things that I think I would do with my mom and like, things that would probably make us closer because ever since like I've kind of grown out of that like, teenage stage, I think about like, oh, now I understand her more. So maybe, these are things that I would show her that, she would like. So I kind of like think about maybe we would have been close. It's like weird to say, but I think I'm closer to her now than I was when she was alive. But yeah, I have a feeling if I was younger, like if she never passed away, I don't know if we would be as close. But I think with my mentality, if I had that then, we probably would have gone to that stage. But I'll never know. So it is what it is.
Mm. And that's got to bring up some type of feelings or something that you won't know.
Yeah, no. I think yeah, no, I go through these like stages where I think about it or these phases of thinking about it and then, it brings me to like this mental place and then I'm just like, all right, it's time to stop. So, yeah, I try not to think about it, but then it's hard not to.
Something that we like to talk about sometimes is, have you ever gone to therapy?
This is another topic that I haven't like talked about as yet, but I don't mind talking about it here. I've always wanted to go to therapy ever since I was a child, like even before my mom was out of my life, just because like, just certain things I was going through then. But that was kind of denied. And after my mom passed, I think I was mad because I've never been to therapy before. I was just mad about a lot of things. I'm just like, I don't want to deal with anyone. I don't want to talk about anything. I just wanted to live my life. And it's funny because, I don't know if it's funny or not, but her coworkers actually got counseling for what happened to her, but they never offered the family any counseling.
Wow.
So yeah, I never got any help for that, which is another reason why I started this page, because I'm just like, I wonder if others didn't. And, I think it also depends on like the age of the person who's going through it. Because as a 17-year-old, I'm not going to go out my way to go look for a counselor or a therapist. So I didn't do that. I'm older now, so I can't say that anymore. And I do want to look for someone, but there's other challenges of like finding the right person, because I don't want to like find someone and be like, oh, you're not the right fit for me. And then I have to go again and say the whole story all over. So it's kind of just me being my own therapist. That's terrible to say, but like I've been using this whole platform as like I guess, a therapeutic thing, but it's not the same thing. It really isn't, because I'd rather talk to someone, a professional, who can like actually divvy up my thoughts for me about like what I want to express.
Your work on this, I think you said it the right way. I think it's probably therapeutic. And, you know, as you're talking, like you are working on yourself and processing all that. And
Yeah, no, for sure.
And helping other people, providing a space for them, providing a space for yourself. So that is great work and very good. I hope you continue. And do you think you'll do more podcasts?
For sure. Yes, I have plans to expand my podcast more to talk to other survivors. So, you know, that's in the works, but hopefully I'm going to still continue talking about my story, but I definitely want to have other people to give them that chance to also talk about their story as well. So,
okay, very good, because it's kind of become I've only done it twice, but it's become a little favorite pastime of mine to like promote your page and share it with people if they're talking about it. And so, yeah, if I come across people who are survivors, then I will show them your way. Definitely.
Yeah, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. I know it definitely can be comforting to know that others have similarities to like what you have gone through as well.
So if you had one day with your mom, or if you could tell her anything that you wanted to now, what would you say?
I don't know if I would tell her anything. I feel like I would ask a lot of questions about her, about who she is, about her life, because when I asked her as a child about her background, she lied about a lot of things. So I feel like I don't really know her as much. So I would want to at least hope that she would tell me the truth this time. And I think that's pretty much it. I think I would just ask questions about her family, about who she is. Yeah, I don't know. I can't really, and because it's hard to think about this, because every time I think about asking her a question, my last thought of her like alive is just her like kind of suffering and like fighting for her life. So it's kind of like thinking that she would be in that same position. So I'll just be like, are you okay? Kind of, you know, like, are you in pain type of thing? Yeah. I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Do you have like a favorite podcast or a favorite book, or like any recommendations to other people that have helped you?
Surprisingly enough, I don't listen to podcasts as much. And it's not that I don't want to. I literally just work, do my LVM stuff, and then I gotta go. It's just like I never have any downtime. But there is one book. Let me try to find it. Okay, it's called Healing Your Traumatized Heart. There's like different books by the same author, but it's specifically for like homicide, suicide, and like accidental death, like about sudden and violent death. But I recommend that to those who definitely and someone recommended this to me. Okay, it's by Alan D. Wolfelt. Alan D. Wolfelt.
Okay, so yeah, you're doing a lot of talking then to other people through messaging and things.
So yeah, they'll like DM me sometimes about them, and I will be like, oh, okay, you know, I'll tell them like, would you like to meet up to share more of your story? Because, you know, obviously this page is, you know, for you to share your story. And, you know, most of them have agreed. All of them agreed, actually.
You're meeting in person with these people, and then that's how they share your story. So you're basically you're already doing that. You're just not recording things.
Yes, because it's homicide, so it's kind of like more tricky. I'd rather have them be comfortable about talking about their story first, and because there's certain details that they may not be allowed to share or they don't want to share. And, you know, I'd rather have them be comfortable, tell me first, just to learn about them more. And then, you know, I'd rather go from there, because I haven't like actually started the actual like podcast with them. So I want to give them that chance to actually talk about themselves more than like, you know, put it out there.
So is this by the time the show airs, unfortunately, your what your project that you're working on right now
Mhm.
will be done. What are you working on right now to help others share their stories?
Yeah, so currently I have an anonymous submission form for survivors. I don't know who you are if you do put your story in, but there's only a few questions just asking about your grief, about what you've been through, and the support that you have or haven't received. And I give you a chance to like leave your email and I will contact you because, some people don't want to be reached out to. But if you do want to share more of your story, please leave your email and I will definitely get back to you like as soon as possible. And then I'll set up a meeting for us. It's where we can like learn more about each other. So yeah, that
Okay.
is pretty much how I've been sharing other people's story. Currently, I have been sharing the holiday grief of survivors because in 2 days, National Survivors of Homicide Victims Awareness Month is from November 20th to December 20th. And, they chose this time frame because, it's during the holidays. And, when we lose a loved one, obviously grief can hit harder and is more intensified. So this is the time period that they chose for the Awareness Month. And I decided to only give the spotlight to other survivors to share their holiday grief and what they go through. Because, a lot of people kind of overlook people who have lost someone. They don't realize that holidays aren't happy for everyone. And, I definitely wanted to give that platform to survivors, but also share happy memories that they've had with their loved ones, to honor them in some way and to share how they honor them. And yeah, so I am still currently sharing their stories. Up until the 20th will be, I guess, the last holiday submission. But afterwards, I will still be sharing I'm still sharing their normal grief submissions.
If this applies to you, then please visit Rebecca on Insta. Well, no, tell us, where's the format?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, on Instagram, at LVM ADVTNGE is the name. I guess I should spell it out because it's kind of weird. LVM ADVNTGE is my Instagram name, but I will have a link in my bio where you can also visit my YouTube podcast if you want to watch it. It's also on other links to Apple, Spotify, so on is there. And my submission, the anonymous submission form will also be there under anonymous submission form. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I also have a bit of my story if you want to learn more on my website, but I think you'll get more info from the podcast because I haven't touched my website in a while.
Okay. What is your website?
It's LVM ADVTNGE, the actual word advantage.com.
Is there anything that we haven't brought up that you would like to bring up now? I know there's a lot of those questions that we didn't really touch on.
Oh, I guess there is one thing. I just want to highlight about why raising homicide awareness is important in general, because a lot of people like to hear about the crime that was committed. And a lot of people like to hear about the actual murderer or killer that committed that crime more than actually listening to families and survivors and what they go through. Because, survivors are the ones that deal with the aftermath, but they don't want to hear about it. So, I find this really important for others to realize, because you don't need to be an actual survivor to raise homicide awareness, which is important to note. In fact, we need everyone else also, because that's how you raise awareness. And I think, along with true crime podcasts, because they get so much audience, they have a huge audience. And, I think it's great. You're bringing awareness to the story and the victims, but I also think it's important for them to also give their attention to survivors, because, we are the ones that really know them.
And it kind of feels like too that, if your loved one was taken from you in this way, that then, there's this outside person that's getting that attention and all of that stuff. And
exactly.
It does seem like it would definitely take away from your own everything, your grieving process, your everything.
No, for sure. And, every single survivor story is very different, because there's some people that have more attention on the killer than the actual victim themselves. Some people don't even want to pay attention to their story because of like who they were as a person or whatever they were involved in. And I think this is more of a reason why we need to talk about it, because, you know, they were still human. They were still a human being. And, you know, you still have to give everyone a chance, even after they passed. So, yeah, I mean, it's really important to have every single one, like, try to help raise homicide awareness. Every person is appreciated.
Definitely. I was going to kind of look at your account real quick. Have you heard of, well, because you might follow him already, Mark Lemon?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
So I've only recently, sorry, did you have a question?
Nope, that was my question. I was
Okay.
I was gonna look, and I was like, I'll just ask her.
Yeah. I only recently found out about him. I think I came across his page briefly, like a long time ago, but I don't know why I didn't look into him more. But, you know, I know about him. Yes, I actually have spoken to him and have reached out to him. And, you know, hopefully, you know, he's a very busy person. So hopefully I will be able to like talk to him more about his loss. Cause I know he talks about what has happened to his father, but, you know, I definitely want to get his like survivor, like more in perspective on, because he talks about grief in general, which is great. And I definitely would like to know more about his journey and to see if he could help other survivors, because he was very young, you know, when his father was killed. So, yeah.
All right, Rebecca, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for giving us this chance. And I appreciate it, because you are my first podcast. So, yeah, I really appreciate it.
Parentless Podcast is recorded in Phoenix, Arizona. Find us on social media and most major podcast platforms. Music provided by Colin Lococo and the Revolving Birds. Studio and editing provided by Back Home Media and Ian Relaford. Check out one of the many shows on our network. I am your host, Stephanie Relaford.